Hello and welcome back to Dear Jordan. This is a space where I take a moment to slow things down and say the things that don't always get said out loud, but probably should. Each episode is written as a letter to my daughter. But the truth is, a lot of these letters are conversations I once needed myself, long before I had the words for them. The kind of conversations that would have saved me time, confusion, and honestly, a few situations I had no business being in the first place. Today's letter is about something that sounds simple on the surface, but ends up shaping almost every decision you make in life: your value. Not the kind people assign to you, not the kind that changes depending on who's looking, not the kind that gets louder or quieter depending on the approval, but the kind that exists before any of that. Because whether people realize it or not, a lot of us don't spend our lives discovering our worth. We spend our lives negotiating it, adjusting it, explaining it, defending it, sometimes even lowering it, just to be accepted somewhere we probably shouldn't have been trying to fit into the first place. And if no one ever stops you and says otherwise, you can go a very long time believing that your value is something that has to be confirmed by other people. So today, I want to interrupt that idea. So grab yourself a cup of coffee and listen in. Dear Jordan, there will be many times in your life where you will be evaluated for school, for jobs, in rooms where you are asked to present yourself and wait for someone else to decide what they think. Even in relationships, and no one really says this out loud, but people are constantly deciding where you fit in their life. What role you play, how much space you're allowed to take up, how valuable you are to them. And that can feel very real, very personal. But before any of that happens, before anyone tells you who you are, before anyone decides how they feel about you, before anyone approves of you, misunderstands you, or even rejects you, you were already valuable. Not because someone agreed with it, not because someone confirmed it, but because God established it. And what God establishes does not require human agreement to be true. The Bible says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. That's not a compliment. That's a statement of origin. It means you were created with intention, not assembled by accident, not waiting to become valuable later. You were designed with value already in place, which means your worth is not something people get to vote on. And that's important because people will try. Because the world is going to have opinions. Oh, will it have opinions? Some will be loud, some will be subtle, some will sound like love, some will sound like concern, and some will sound like criticism disguised as guidance. I just want what's best for you. And sometimes they might even believe that. But if you're not grounded, you will start using those opinions as measurements. You will start asking yourself, am I enough? Am I doing this right? Am I too much? Am I not enough? And what's dangerous about these questions is that they feel honest, but they are not rooted in truth. They are rooted in comparison. And psychologically, comparison does something very specific. It shifts your focus from who you are to how you are perceived. And those things are not the same. Because once your brain starts scanning for how you're being perceived, you stop acting from identity and start acting from performance. You adjust your tone, you adjust your personality, you adjust your honesty. Not because you're fake, but because you're trying to stay accepted. And that's how people slowly lose themselves without even realizing it. I remember learning this in a way I didn't understand at the time. When I entered the 7th grade, I walked into a school where most of the students had already known each other for years. They had history, they had friendships, they had already found their place. And I was new, an outsider. And when you're an outsider, you become very aware of how you are being seen. So I tried to find my way in. I started small, connecting with one person and then another. But what I didn't realize at the time was that the moment I connected with someone, I stopped being seen as myself. I was being interpreted through them. If I was with this person, then I must be like this person. And that never sat right with me, because even at a young age, I knew I was an individual. But I was also coming from a place where I had already been compared. I grew up alongside someone exceptional. My brother was recognized, awarded, celebrated, and I was often measured against that. So early on, I understood something important. If I didn't define myself, someone else would, and they would probably get it wrong. So when I entered that new school, I thought I could establish my identity on my own terms. But instead, I walked into another system of evaluation. Teachers, peers, all deciding who I was based on proximity, not truth. And I only had 2 years there, 2 years where I tried to stand out, tried to be understood, tried to show that I was not a copy of anyone else. But it felt like I was being measured on a scale that was never mine. And looking back now, I see it clearly. I was waiting for people to evaluate me correctly, instead of understanding that they were never the ones who defined me in the first place. And that's what I want you to understand sooner than I did. Because when you place people in the position of defining your value, you also give them permission to distort it. We are wired for connection. We are designed to belong. But when that need becomes stronger than your sense of identity, it turns into something else. It turns into self-abandonment. You start adjusting to stay accepted, shrinking to stay included, performing to stay chosen, and slowly you trade truth for approval. But approval is unstable. It changes. Truth doesn't. There will be moments where being chosen feels like validation, and not being chosen feels like something must be wrong with you. Be careful there, because being chosen is not the same thing as being valued, and not being chosen is not the same thing as being unworthy. Sometimes people don't choose you because they don't recognize what you carry. Sometimes they don't choose you because they are not equipped to handle it. And sometimes they don't choose you because they are operating from their own limitations, not your lack. But if you don't know who you are before that moment, you will take their decision and turn it into your identity. And once that happens, you don't just feel rejected, you start redefining yourself based on rejection. And that is where people lose years of their life, trying to become someone who would have been chosen. And I also want to prepare you for something else, because there will be times in your life where you don't just feel evaluated, you will feel chosen. And on the surface, that can feel like the most validating experience in the world. Someone sees you, they recognize you, they speak to you in a way that feels specific, intentional, almost too perfect. They'll say things like, "I don't know what it is about you. You're different. I've never connected with someone like this before. It just feels like this was meant to be." And if you are not grounded in who you are, that kind of attention can feel like confirmation. Like finally, someone sees your value without you having to explain it. But I need you to be careful there, because not everything that feels like recognition is rooted in truth. Sometimes it's projection, sometimes it's idealization, and sometimes it's manipulation. There are people who will study you just enough to reflect back a version of you that feels undeniable. Not because they deeply understand you, but because they are trying to secure you. Psychologically, this is called love bombing. And what it does is it creates an accelerated sense of connection. It bypasses time. It bypasses discernment. It bypasses your ability to fully see what's in front of you because everything feels right too quickly, too intensely, too perfectly aligned. And in that moment, it doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like fate. It feels like this has to be God. This has to be meant to be. This came together too perfectly to be anything else. But here's the truth I need you to hold on to. God does not rush you into confusion. God does not require urgency to confirm something He established. And anything that pressures you to skip discernment is not something you should trust. Because what happens next is once that connection is established, once you've agreed, even silently, that this must be special, that this must be real, that this must be meant to be, that's when the shift happens. The attention changes, the tone changes, the consistency changes, and now you're no longer responding to who they actually are. You're trying to get back to who they were in the beginning. And that's how manipulation works. It gives you something powerful just long enough for you to attach to it. And then it slowly removes it. So you spend your time trying to earn it back, not realizing it was never stable to begin with. And this is where your understanding of your value becomes critical. Because if you believe your value is something someone else discovered, you will also believe it's something they can take away. But if you understand that your value was given to you by God before they ever met you, then no amount of attention or withdrawal of attention can redefine it. So when someone comes into your life and it feels intense and immediate and overwhelming in a way that feels almost too perfect, I don't want your first thought to be, this must be fate. I want your first thought to be, let me slow this down and see if it's consistent. Because truth does not need to rush you. And what is real will remain steady over time. So I need you to hold on to this. You do not have to shrink to be accepted. You do not have to perform to be loved. And you do not have to prove that you are worthy of being treated well, because what God placed in you does not require performance to be valid. The right people in your life will not need a presentation. They will not need you to convince them. They will not need you to earn basic respect. And if you ever find yourself in a position where you feel like you have to work overtime just to be seen correctly, that is not a reflection of your value. That is a reflection of where you are. And those are two very different things, because your value doesn't increase when someone recognizes it, and it doesn't decrease when someone fails to. It remains the same, consistent, steady, unaffected by opinion, because it was never built on opinion to begin with. And I also need you to understand something clearly. You are not to live your life by simply following my instructions. You are not here to become a reflection of me. You are here to become who God created you to be. And that is something you will have to discover for yourself. There will be things I can teach you. There will be things I can warn you about. Things I can explain in a way that might save you time. But I cannot live your life for you. And I don't want to. Because some lessons are not meant to be avoided. They are meant to be experienced, understood, and integrated. Not to harm you, but to shape you. So when I share my experiences with you, it's not so you walk in fear. It's not so you avoid life. And it's not so you feel like there's only one quote-unquote right way to do things. It's so that when you find yourself in moments that feel confusing or heavy or uncertain, you don't feel alone in them. You hear my voice in your mind, not controlling you, but grounding you, reminding you to slow down, to think clearly, to come back to who you are, because your life is not something you are meant to perform correctly. It's something you're meant to live honestly. And I trust you to do that. Even if your path looks different than mine, even if you choose differently than I would, because your voice, your perspective, your way of seeing the world, that was given to you by God. Not for you to silence, not for you to override with someone else's expectations, but for you to develop. So I will guide you. I will share with you. I will walk beside you where I can, but I will never try to replace your judgment with mine, because the goal is not for you to become me. The goal is for you to become fully yourself. You are not here to perform your life correctly. You are here to live it honestly, grounded in truth, not opinion, and that will always be enough. With all the love I am still learning how to give, your mom. Thank you for sitting with me through this letter. If there's one thing I hope you take with you, it's this. You do not have to wait for someone else to confirm your value before you start living like it's already there, because it is. And the sooner you understand that, the less time you'll spend trying to earn what was never missing in the first place. If this letter resonated with you, you can follow Dear Jordan on Spotify so you don't miss the next one. And if you're navigating your own process of rebuilding, especially through something as heavy as family court or difficult relationships, I do offer coaching where I help you move through the emotional side of it so you can think clearly and make grounded decisions. The link is in the description. Until next time, this has been Dear Jordan, Letters to My Daughter.